Welcome to Voodoo Whiskey Gaming, and this is my late review of Final Fantasy XVI Rising Tide DLC. So I played on the PS5 because, you know, it's on the PS5. So let's get into the story. You once again play as Clive and his merry band of misfits, and this DLC takes place before the end of the game. You get a letter, and you're basically summoned to meet this gal out on the coast named Shula, and she takes you to a hidden land because, well, they're having problems there. Specifically with the long-lost icon, Leviathan, as well as his dominant. Shula's goal is basically to help save the dominant who's been frozen in time for about 100 years. And then obviously twists and turns along the way, which I appreciated. I liked that there was a good amount to this DLC from a story standpoint. So let's move on to the audio, and it's Final Fantasy, so you know the music is going to be fantastic. The voiceover work, once again, on par with the main game, and it's very well done, so nothing to say there. No real changes there. I think Shula, as well as her people, they all have a newer accent, so I think that kind of mixes things up. It's a slightly different accent than what we've heard, which is cool because it actually adds character to them. It lets you know that they are a people of their own. And then last but not least, you have the sound effects, which, I mean, they're fantastic as well. There's nothing bad about them. So we'll move forward onto the gameplay mechanics and whatnot. And it's still an RPG. It's still an action RPG. And I'm going to say it now, I played in lazy mode. I put on a couple of the rings that make the gameplay a bit easier because it's been a while. I don't feel like getting into this and just getting my shit fully rocked. But I will say, even with that, some of the fights were harder than I expected. So playing in the traditional manner without those on, it's going to be a challenge, which, I mean, you're going to want that from an action RPG like this, unless you're being lazy like me. But it functions like a real extension to the rest of the Final Fantasy XVI in that you have your main quest line, but beyond that, you also have a good amount of side quests. I was actually surprised at how many side quests there were in this DLC. Not that this DLC is going to take you the next 20 hours. It's not that big. I do wish it was longer, but you do get a decent amount of content. Plus, there are new weapons to unlock, etc. I also appreciated that they finally introduced a fan favorite enemy, the Tonberry. I mean, come on, why wasn't it in the main game? It's like a staple. And surprisingly enough, one of the quest lines actually has a good amount to do with the Tonberries, which I thought was cool. But overall, I'm going to say there weren't a lot of changes. They didn't really add too much in the gameplay element. If you've played 16, you know from a gameplay standpoint what you're getting yourself into in this DLC. We can move on to the controls, and the first thing I'm going to say is they work exactly as well as they did in the main game. They work the exact same as in the main game. No changes there, which is good. Last but not least, graphics and visuals, and here I will say they add an entire new zone or several zones. You know how the map works in Final Fantasy XVI. But I like them because they're actually bright and colorful. They show that this land, for reasons explained in the story I'm not going to go into, is kind of not affected by the Blight in the same way and all of that, as well as all the other events going on, which is cool, and it gives you slightly different visuals, a different landscape than what you would be expecting from the rest of the world in Final Fantasy XVI. But not only that, as I mentioned, Tonberries, and they designed the Tonberries, that's what I'll say. I'm not going to say I hate the design of the Tonberries, it's just not what you're used to from most Final Fantasies. Tonberries have always kind of stood out to me in Final Fantasy as these kind of oddly cutesy enemies. And I don't think they quite fit that same vibe here, but they do definitely fit like Tonberry should into the Final Fantasy XVI world. I will say, compared to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, it doesn't look quite as good. It's still a great looking game. There's no question about that. It's just Rebirth looks better, I have to say. And normally I wouldn't try and draw that comparison, but I did just do Rebirth, and in my spare time I've been doing a second playthrough of Rebirth, so it's really still quite fresh in my mind. But I'm not going to complain about the visuals. I like the design. I like the detail. I really enjoy the effects of your icon-based attacks. I enjoy pretty much everything. I think what they built, especially in the new land, is really awesome and it fits. It's not one of those things where they went way out of their way and it no longer feels like it's taking place in Final Fantasy XVI. So I appreciate that. Okay, so to wrap this up, I really don't have anything negative to say about this apart from I wish it was longer. Everything else holds up, and at the price tag and the amount of gameplay you get out of it, I don't have a problem recommending this to Final Fantasy fans. Do I wish DLCs were cheaper? Yes. Was this one grotesquely overpriced? No, I don't think so. So if you're like me and you enjoyed Final Fantasy 16 and you want more time in it, it's fully recommended. I have no problems with that. Okay, in the comments down below, why don't you tell me who is your favorite Final Fantasy 16 character? It's Torgal. And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. And if you like what I'm doing in general, share and subscribe. Have a good one.